Hey, inmates. Welcome back to the cellblock Scorch. This is Styx. I will be reading the winning piece from week 240A, which I wrote. The prompt for this week was, a person who hates magic so much that it has no effect on them. The prompt was given by Grishmak. I wish I could tell you something interesting about the conception of this piece, but I have nothing. It's just a little good times piece. This may not make sense, but this is sort of what I imagine it would be like to be a particle physicist. So, without further ado, please enjoy Ambrose Sallow's Frown. His name was Ambrose Sallow, and the only thing deeper than his understanding of magical theory was his perpetual frown. He first discovered his obsession with theoretical magics after an argument with a teacher in grade school. "You've said that magic is drawn from the earth," he said. The teacher nodded pleasantly and said, "That's right, Ambrose, and magicians are people who pull that magic up out of the ground and change it so that they can use it." "But they have to be touching the ground?" he pressed. "Exactly! That's why magicians have stone floors in their houses. Now, class, why do you think—" "But they wear shoes," Ambrose interrupted. The teacher paused. "Sorry?" "If they wear shoes, then they're not really touching the ground when they do magic," Ambrose said, and he frowned. A rather small, tame frown, a precursor to the truly record-breaking depths that he'd achieve later in life. "Oh," the teacher said, blinking rapidly. "Well, the magic doesn't have trouble going through the shoes." "Then why can't the magic go through a regular floor?" Ambrose demanded. "Ambrose, we don't have time to go into that level of detail in class," said the teacher. "But if you go to the library and check out a book on magical theory, you'll learn all about it." Ambrose checked out all the books he could, but nothing made it make sense. A few years later, he attended a public lecture on magical theory and had a rousing debate with the presenter over whether or not a perfect crystal held any magical charge. Ambrose maintained that it did not, because the structure of a crystal was virtually indistinguishable from the structure of specially constructed magic-free materials. The presenter, however, insisted that he had personally drawn power from crystals, and it was rather more than merely possible. In the end, the presenter sniffed and said, "I do not understand the minute differences in crystals and lab-generated materials enough to explain them to you. If this is a matter of particular interest to you, I recommend the Magical Abundances course of study at the University of Graveler." Ambrose attended the University of Graveler, but didn't make much progress in understanding anything. Later, as he approached the end of his program, he asked a professor what happened when magicians exhausted the natural magic in the earth below them, and the professor looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "Magic is constantly generated at the core of the earth. It will not run out until our planet itself is dead and cold," she said. "Well, yes," Ambrose said. "But you see, even the most skilled magician cannot draw magic from more than 30 feet below them. If we interpret this loosely, we can assume that a magician standing on flat ground has a volumetric hemisphere with a 60-foot diameter from which they may draw magic. Now, as the magician draws magic forth, more magic rises to replace it. However, as we've established in magical dynamics, magic passes from rock to rock at a rate determined by the Gerger's constant times the helix factor. Even if we assume a perfect rock bed of Jackal's silt, the most magically conductive rock known to man, the magic will seep into the emptied rock at a rate 20 times slower than the average magician can pull magic out. Then, if we assume a 100% utility translation, which is of course impossible because some magical energy is always lost into the magician's body, it would only take about 14 hours continuously maintaining a small campfire to consume the entire magical reservoir. It would then take approximately 23 days for magic to fully regenerate. I understand where you got confused, said the professor. But there are other factors involved. What you're suggesting is not possible. But it is! She snorted and waved a dismissive hand. Come back when you have a doctorate in practical regeneration, and we'll talk. So Ambrose got the doctorate, and then another, and then another. And every course he took taught him new rules about the way that magic worked, and he remembered those rules and studied them and used them all to disprove each other, and by the time he got his 7th doctorate, every scholar in a 70-mile radius wanted him dead. At last, an extremely well-researched paper came out, suggesting that a magician's emotional state could influence a spell's strength and radius. The entire scholastic community breathed a collective sigh of relief. Because here, finally, they had found an element of grace, a variable that could not possibly be measured and quantified, a factor that Ambrose Sallow had not considered when he thoroughly debunked all their pet theories. But Ambrose took it as a challenge. He ran exhaustive experiments on himself and others, created a system for communicating the types and levels of emotional excitement. After 10 years, he published a paper casting the theoretical underpinnings of the entire magical discipline in doubt. The theory drew so much ire that at last, the igneous Grand Magician themselves came to put an end to it. "Ambrose Sallow," they boomed, sweeping into Ambrose's office with a fully outfitted squad of magical enforcers. "You are under arrest for disturbing the peace." Ambrose looked up, frowning as deeply as ever. "Might I have a moment's peace?" he grumbled. "If you resist," proclaimed the igneous Grand Magician, "we'll be forced to take drastic measures." "You couldn't possibly harm me more than this drivel has harmed my delicate emotions," Ambrose said gruffly. "I've never seen something so self-contradictory." "Ambrose," the igneous Grand Magician warned, signaling the magical enforcers to ready themselves for action. "Well," Ambrose edged, "I've never seen something so self-contradictory except, of course, the very existence of magic itself." Somehow, impossibly, he managed to frown even deeper. "I didn't want to do this," said the igneous Grand Magician sternly, "but you give me no choice." They made another motion, and as one, the magical enforcers held out their hands to seal Ambrose Sallow in an impenetrable casing from which he would never emerge. But nothing happened, and when they tried again, nothing happened again. And on the 3rd try, when the igneous Grand Magician added their not inconsequential skill and might to the cause, nothing happened again. The igneous Grand Magician furrowed their brow, confused. "What?" For the first time in a very long time, Ambrose brought his nose all the way out of his work. He looked around the room slowly, taking in each of the magical enforcers in turn. Finally, he rested his gaze on the igneous Grand Magician with a deep, an imperious, a positively illustrious frown. "Well," he asked, "you must know that what you're attempting is quite impossible." Ambrose Sallow went free, of course. Absolutely nobody could touch him. It was Ambrose's work which allowed a bright, chipper young lass with a somewhat crooked smile, some say diabolical, though I prefer to think of it as merely discerning, to finally uncover the true laws of magic. It turns out, magic has nothing to do with rocks and earth at all. The only factor in whether or not a magician can do anything is whether they can convince everyone watching that it will work. If I were any kind of scholar, I would follow in Ambrose's footsteps and publish my findings, consequences be damned. Instead, I have a rather different publication planned. I don't know very much about rocks, but I can be very, very persuasive. And the only one with a frown deep enough to counter my smile? Well, bless dear old Ambrose Sallow, but he's dead. I didn't even need magic for that. There you have it, folks. The saga of Ambrose Sallow. I hope you enjoyed my dramatic reading. I can't decide if I was a little too dramatic with it. But, well, anything worth doing is worth overdoing, as they say. So, I've been told that the twist at the very end is fun and satisfying. When I reread this piece so that I could record it, I didn't remember exactly how it went down, and I also did not remember that there was a slight implication that the narrator killed Ambrose at the end. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I guess I should say Happy New Year. You've heard my voice in the new year, but I haven't recorded anything for you in the new year because of the time gap between when we record and when things get posted. So it's a new year for me. It's a new year for you. Hopefully we're all happy. As a personal update, I did promise y'all that I would start posting chapters of my Teen Wolf fanfiction, and I did. I didn't exactly start by the new year, but that's okay. The important thing is that 2 chapters are up now and ready to read if you want to read them. The fic is titled Becoming Greenberg, the same thing that the Scorch was titled a couple weeks ago, so it should be easy for you to find at least. Unfortunately, I have the settings set right now so that only registered users of the archive can see it. This is something that a couple writers have been doing lately in order to try and dissuade people from scraping their writing and putting it through AI, because nobody wants their lovingly handcrafted stories to be fed into the machine. At least I don't. The good news is that archive of our own accounts are free. It might take a little while to get approved, but a week or so isn't too long of a wait. And you've waited this long to read my excellent fanfiction, so you can wait a little longer. My author name, my username on the archive is Thinking in the AM, if you'd like to check that out, or anything else that I've written. The prompt that I gave for the next week was write something that feels like a Halloween special. It may not be spooky season right now, but only if you're a coward. For the brave, spooky season is all year. Words to live by. Words to live by. And I think that's it. I hope y'all have a great week. Great couple of weeks until you hear from me again. And keep those fires burning.
The Cellblock Scorch is a production of Stellacore, an independent group of nerds sharing their obsessions with the world. Links to all our projects, including Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube, Patreon, and Ko-Fi, can be found on our link tree posted in each episode description. Follow us on Tumblr or Instagram to see the prompt of the day before the episode drops, and a quote from each Scorch the day after. If you would like to support our creative endeavors, you can give a one-time tip to the Ko-Fi of the writer of your favorite Scorches, or check out our Patreon. There, you can access the Scorches and episode transcripts for free, or sign up for Spark level support for $5 a month to gain access to our embers as well.